I need everybody paying attention. Sorry, Adrian. Here is what I want to do first, okay? I want to do, since I haven't seen you in a couple days, I want to do a little review of what we talked about last time. Does anybody remember what we talked about last time?
The law of signs.
Well, we did the law of signs, and we talked about a special situation with the law of signs. We talked about a problem that says how many triangles are possible. Remember these? Does anybody remember how many triangles could be possible? What are the possible? You could get 2, you could get 1, you could get 0. So what I want to do real quick to kind of, refresh our memories and get us going is I'm going to do example of each. All right? So I'm going to set up 3 triangles, give you some information, and we're going to figure out how many triangles are possible. So, one of these is going to be 0, one of these is going to be 1, and one of them is going to be 2, with any luck at all. Now, Richie, how you got me mad at you? Okay, so here is the given information for each of the triangles. These are not in your notes. If you have room in your notes, you can certainly do it there, or you can do it on a piece of paper. But I really would like you writing these down with me so that you will have this little bit of review. This is we don't have very much left. Today we're going to talk about the law of cosines. Tomorrow we're going to talk about area, and then we will finish this unit. And all we have to do is review. It's very short, not very much stuff. So I really need you to kind of stay up with things. Here we go. Remember in chapter 5, we are only doing section 1, 5, and 6. Okay? That's all we're doing in chapter 5.
Should I take that quiz later today?
What?
Should I take my quiz later today?
When should you have taken the quiz, my dear? This morning before school. Okay, so we'll have to talk about that later. All right? Okay. Now, we're going to set this up using our law of signs. What's it going to look like? What does the law of signs say about this triangle? Sine 26 over 7 equals sine S over 6. Now, kids, you don't have a choice, because you could say sine H, but then you'd have to use H because you don't have that number. We don't want to have 2 variables here. So we're going to have to use S. So we use this set because we've got this set. So sine 26 over 7. And then we say sine S over 6. All right, what do we do next? We cross multiply. So 6 sine 26 equals 7 sine S. And then what? That's cross multiply.
Divide by 7.
Divide by what?
7.
7. Yep, we're going to divide by 7. So sine S equals 6 sine 26 divided by 7. So then I get my calculator out, making sure it's set in degrees, which it probably is, but you might just double check it. Remember, and I hate to sound like a broken record, and I'm sure you're sick of me saying it, but remember to close these parentheses before you hit divided by 7. Now, did you get a decimal? Did you get a decimal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is not the answer. How do I get the actual angle? What do I need to do to that decimal? Second sign it. So second sign that decimal, and I got 22.1 if I round it off to the nearest tenth. All right, you're supposed to be typing with me. Someone needs to nod and say, yeah, Mrs. Ford, you typed that in right. I got 22.1. Okay. Excuse me. Now, here comes the tricky part. Once you have figured out that there is an answer. You've got to, over to the side, figure out if you could have a second angle S. If you have a second angle S, it will be 180 minus this one. So I'm going to figure out what that would have to be. That would have to be 157.9. So once you get your first angle, you always say, okay, could there be a second angle? Excuse me. And if there is a second angle, it will always be 180 minus the first one that you got. Now, take a look at this triangle. Is that possible? It's either going to be or not going to be possible. Is it possible to have a 26 and a 157? No. Why not? Because that's more than 180. And what do we know about every triangle in the whole wide world? The angles add up to 180. So this one doesn't work, which means this information gave us one triangle. How many triangles are possible? One. You're always going to try the second one. Sometimes it's going to be okay, and sometimes it's not. Okay? All right, let's go on to the second one now. It's going to be done exactly the same way. So how do we start? Kid, set up law signs for me.
So you got 30, sine 30.
Sine 30.
Over 6.
Yep.
Equals,
You got to go with this. It's the only other number you have.
okay, so sine S over 7.
Yep. That's got to be the setup because you don't have any information about the H's. So we can't use the H's. We got to use obviously the C's because we got both of that, and then the S because we have the 7. All right, now do the cross multiply for me. Joey, can you cross multiply for me?
6 sine S
Yep.
equals 7 sine.
Beautiful. And then Mazzy, last thing I need to do before I go to my calculator is what?
We're solving for 6, right?
I'm solving for this.
And then divide by,
I want to get this by itself, so what do I need to divide by?
6.
Yep, I'm going to divide by 6. So I have sine S equals 7 sine 30 divided by 6. So now I'm going to go to my calculator. You get a crazy decimal, remember? That is not your answer. You have to second sign that decimal. And I got about 35.7. You should all be typing this in.
How many places do we have?
Well, right now I'm doing tenths. A lot of times it will say hundreds. It's like on your quiz, it said hundreds. Okay. So did anybody match me? 35.7?
Yeah.
Okay. Now what do I do next? You aren't done.
Yeah.
Now we have to check to see if the second one works. So if the second one works, what will be that second angle X? 180 minus it, so that would be 144.3. You check the second angle, which is always 180 minus the first one. Then you stand back and say, all right, does that make sense? Can I do that? Can I have a 30 and a 144? Yeah, because what about 30 and 144? It's less than 180. That means both of these answers would be okay, and you have 2 solutions. Now, goofies, I've done both of these problems exactly the same way. Nothing is different about them, except here, when I found the second angle, it made more than 180, so I had to throw it out. Here, when I found the second angle, it worked. Phil?
You did 7 sine 30 over x to get 35.7.
7 sine 30 over 6.
Yep. That gave me a 0.5.
And then you have to second sign that.
Ah.
We always second sign the decimal to get the angle.
So what's that? 0.5 and just second sign it?
Yeah, but not 0.5. You want to take the decimal places. You want to second sign that whole decimal. Okay, all right, so here we go. Last one, same problem. Set it up for me. Caroline, can you get the first setup done?
Sine 73 over 24 equals sine S over 40.
Beautiful. So there's her law of sines. Sine 73 over 24 equals sine S over 28. All right, Lucas Jones, next step. So that would be? Yep, they're equal to each other. So 24 sine S equals 28 sine 73, beautiful. And then Ethan, our last step before we go to the calculator. Okay, you need to be attentive. Somebody help him. He doesn't know what the next step is. What should he do? Divide by 24 so that you have your variable, which is sine S, all by itself. So 28 sine 73 over 24. So now Ethan, get your calculator out. 28 sine 73, close parentheses, divided by 24. Now you should get a decimal, right? So what do we do with our decimal? The decimal is never the answer. You have to second sign the decimal. Uh-oh, what happened? Error message, which means this set of data does not make a triangle. There are no triangles possible. If there were triangles possible, you would get an answer, like 22.1. But you didn't get an answer, which means there are no triangles possible. So you don't need, you're done with that problem. You don't go any farther. Okay? Now, that brings us to our note sheets. The next section, which 5.6 looks like about the same thing. There's a triangle there and it says solve the triangle. Okay, so does everybody have your note sheets out?
After second sign.
I don't know if you guys are waiting on an engraved invitation or what. Get your note sheets out. Turn to the back of page 41. We have to find angle Q, angle R, and side P. All right, now, let's say you're walking down the hallway and you find this triangle, and your job is to solve it. Well, it's not, wait, could happen, you never know. It's not a right triangle, so we're not going to use SOHCAHTOA or the Pythagorean theorem and all that. Right now, the only tool you have available to you is the law of sines, and it's pretty easy. So what would the law of sines look like if I set this up? Sine 58 over P equals sine R over 10. Now wait a minute. Wait a minute. That is a true statement, but I think I'm gonna have trouble solving it. Would you agree? Why am I gonna have trouble solving it? Too many variables. And you picked R, which was absolutely fine. Would it fix anything if I picked Q? No. This is not a law of signs situation. Here is the deal, folks. If you want to do the law of signs, you have to have a set. In other words, if you have angle P, you gotta have side P. If you have angle Q, you gotta have side Q. Angle R, side R. If you don't have a matched set, then you're not gonna use the law of signs. This is what's gonna happen. Think about our last problems that we just did. Didn't we know this angle and this side every time? So we could say sine 58 over 6 equals sine whatever over whatever. Well, we don't have that this time. So this is going to be a law of cosines problem. Now, I could write the law of cosines up here. It would freak you out. It's scary looking, but it's very easy to use. So I'm going to write it out, and then we're going to talk about it, and we'll practice a few. Okay? So here we go. If I'm going to do this problem, I'm going to solve it with the law of cosines, and I'm going to say P squared equals 10 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 10 times 15 times the cosine of 58. I told you it was scary looking.
Nope.
Let's talk about this. How many angles are available for me to use in this problem? One. One angle. Okay? If there's one angle available, then that's the one I'm going to have to use. So that's why it says cosine 58 right here. Now notice that P, which is across from the 58, is the thing that's over here all by itself. There's only one thing over here, and it's P squared. Because the angle I used was angle P. Now, what are these things? Where did they come from? They're the other two sides. So I have a 10 squared and a 15 squared. Now, what do I have here? The same two sides. Okay? So just keep that in mind. We're going to finish this problem and then we'll do another one. Meredith?
On our note sheet, you wrote 13, not 15.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, so that'll make this a 13 and this a 13. Thank you. That way I just copied it wrong. Keaton, is that what you're going to tell me? Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? I just changed the 15s to 13s? Now we're going to go ahead and finish this problem, and then I promise we'll look at the next one. But what I want you to start getting used to is the pattern here. Here is my angle P, here is my side P. And all the stuff in the middle is the other two sides. 10 squared, 13 squared, 2 times 10 times 13. The 2 is always there. All right? Now, let's get our calculators out. Let's plug that in. Now, here's the good news. You can type this in just like that, okay? So type 10 squared plus 13 squared. You don't have to write anything down, just type it. Minus 2 times 10 times 13 times cosine 58. Now tell me what you got. You just type all that in, right in a line, just exactly the way you see it right here. 131. Now be careful. What is that? That is P squared. So to actually get side P, what are you going to have to do? Square root it. So I'm going to square root that number. Make sure you're doing the decimal places. Don't just do 131. And did you get, I'll round it off, 11.46? So side P is 11.46. Okay, Phil, are you typing this in with us? You always look like you're at the beach or something, Phil.
What do you mean? Just enjoying Precal.
Keegan? Square root. Square root the 131 number. Make sure you're taking the decimal places with it, okay? All right, now, boys and girls. Now, I want you to look at what I have now. You see this right here? Now, I could use my law of sines. I'm not done. I still got to find Q and R. I've only found one answer. There's two more. But now I can set up my law of sines. Because remember what I told you? To do the law of sines, it takes a set. As soon as you have a set, I mean P and P, R and R, Q and Q, as soon as you have a set, then you're good to go. So I'm going to say sine 58 over 11.46 equals sine R over 10. Is that solvable?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only one variable in it, so I'm good to go. See how that works? All right, so what's the next step? Now I'm back to the law of sines, so the next step is what? Multiply, so 10 sine 58 equals 11.46 sine R. Divide, so sine R equals 10 sine 58 over 11.46. Now this is going to be like the last ones we did. You are going to get a decimal when you type that in. So as soon as you get that decimal, you need the second sign in. And that's going to give us angle R, which is 47.73. Can I have a nod? 47.73 degrees. So that's angle R. You're almost done. Oh my gosh, huge problem. We're almost done. How about angle Q now? Exactly, Maddie. Once you have two angles, how can you real easily find the third one? Subtract from 180. So 58, oops, 58 plus 47.73. I got 74.27. When you are retyping in your decimals and stuff, make sure you're typing in a lot of decimal places. Don't round it off. Type in a bunch of decimal places. Or if you want, you can use your answer button. If you want help with that, ask me and I will show you how to use your answer button, and then you don't have to retype it. Alright, now I'm going to have to erase this to start the next one. This is big. Some of it's kind of review, some of it's brand new. Does anybody have a question about where one of those numbers came from before I have to erase it? Alright, I'm going to skip B for a minute and go to C, because C is the same kind of problem. So we're going to refresh our memories here. See if we can do this one. Alright, so you find this triangle somewhere and it says solve. First thing you look at is, am I going to use the law of sines or the law of cosines? And you make that determination by checking to see, do I have this set? No. Do I have this set? No. Do I have this set? No. So therefore, I will not be using the law of sines. This is going to be a cosine law. And the only angle I have is 104, which means that's the angle that's going to show up right here. It's going to be cosine 104, which means the side that's over here all by itself is going to be side E. So it's going to say E squared equals. That's the only E in the problem, right there, all by itself. Now, what goes here? 12 squared plus 16 squared. The other two sides, all right? And then minus 2 always, that never changes. And what's gonna go inside those parentheses? Minus 2 times what? 12 and 16. And then your cosine 104. That's the law of cosines. You got one side over here squared. Then you got the other two sides squared. Minus 2 times those two sides times the cosine. Now we just plug it in. So 12 squared. So when you get it all typed in, and kids, the easiest thing to do is just to type it in. Don't write it down. Cause yourself all that trouble. Just type it in. Now you get this big giant number, 492. Keep in mind that is E squared. So what do we have to do to get side actual E, plain E? We need to square root it. So if you square root that number, you get 22.2. Is that right? So side E is 22.2. Everybody okay with that? Now you still need to find angle D and angle F. Those are still missing. And your job is to find all of it. Okay? But now look what we have. See this? What does that mean? Now I can use my law of sines. So it doesn't matter. I'll say sine 104 over 22.2 equals sine F over 12. Now, I picked sine F over 12. Could you have picked sine D over 16? Absolutely. Makes no difference. Right? Alright, so what do we do now? Ethan, what do we do now? We don't divide yet. What do we have to do before we divide? Yes, Ethan, is a proportion. It's a fraction equal to a fraction. We always cross multiply in that situation, okay? Always. So if you have x over 4 equals 5 over 7, Ethan, you're going to cross multiply every time, okay? So we have 12 sine 104 equal to 22.2 sine F. Now we divide. This is where we divide because we want sine F to be by itself. We want to know what sine F is. So 12 sine 104 over 22.2. Now remember, when you type that in, you're going to get some decimal. That is not the answer. What do we have to do to that decimal? Second sign it. And angle F is 31.63. You okay with that? So now we need angle D. How do we find angle D? We add those two together and subtract from 180, and I got 44.37. I don't know, did I make a mistake? Is that good? Is that okay? Mm-hmm. right, there's one more. You ready? This one's gonna be a little bit different. You'll see why. But we're gonna do it the same way. It's just gonna be a little bit different from the start. All right, so any further questions about this before we go on? I can erase them. TJ, you following along okay today?
Yep.
All right. So here we go, back to B. What is different about B?
No angle.
No angles.
But all three sides.
Got all three sides. So in geometry, this would be called an SSS. You got all three sides. The last two we did were SAS. You had two sides and the included angle. This is an SSS, okay? Now, can you use the law of sines?
Yes.
No, because in order to use the law of sines, what do you have to have?
Angles.
You gotta have a set, which means you gotta have an angle, right, in order to have a set. So this is clearly gonna be a law of cosines problem. All right, let's get this straight. Every triangle in the world is solvable with either the law of sines or the law of cosines. So if sines doesn't work, then we know it's going to be cosines, and cosines will work. Okay, every time. Now, I don't know which angle to find first. Do you think it matters? No. So let's just pick one. What angle do you want to find first? A. I'm good with that. We're going to find angle A first. Now, if I have decided that angle A is going to be the angle in my law of cosines, then the side that's going to be over here all by itself is A. So it's 12 squared equals. Remember, the side that's over here all by itself, there's only one thing on this side of the equation. P squared, E squared, whatever it is, it's the side that matches the angle that you're going to use. You told me you were going to use angle A, so I had to put side A over here by itself. Okay? Now, what goes here? If this is side A, this is going to be what?
10 squared.
10 squared and 14 squared. It's going to be the other two sides. And then it's minus 2 always, times 10 and 14. Not
No,
sine, cosine A. I'll go ahead and use A, but yeah. That's your law of cosines. Does everybody understand why I got the 12 over here? Right? If I put the 10 over here, I could do that. But if I put the 10 over here, then this would have to be C. This one is harder to type in.
Do we put cosine A or just leave the cosine A?
What?
Do we put cosine A?
No, you can't type that in, unfortunately, yeah. So we need to get that by itself, tagged, because that is our variable.
Yeah.
So here's what I'd like you to do. This first time through anyway, I think we need to do it step by step. So 12 squared is 144. If you don't know that, you can type it in on your calculator. 12 squared is 144. 10 squared is 100. 14 squared is 196. And again, if you don't know that, you can type 14 times 14. Minus, okay, now all of these are times each other. So that's going to be 280. And again, type it in on your calculator if you don't believe me. So I just figured out what these numbers all are, and I multiplied all that together because it's a multiplication. Now, can these two be added together?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to have 144 equal to 296 minus 280 cosine A. Now, here is what you cannot do. These do not subtract. Why don't these subtract? Because that one's got a cosine and this one doesn't. They aren't like terms. Instead, I want you to subtract the 296. So we're gonna have, what is that, 152 negative equal to negative 280 cosine A. So I subtracted, Luke, you writing this down, sweet pea? I subtracted the 296. Now I'm gonna do what, guess what? Divide. So I have 152 over 280 equals cosine A. I dropped the negatives because I was gonna have a negative over a negative. Is that okay? Now, I'm gonna go ahead and type that decimal in, 152 divided by 280, but that's a decimal. What do I have to do to actually get angle A? I need to second cosine it. And angle A is 57.12. Remember, the decimals are never the answer. To get the angle, you always have to do second whatever, second sine, second cosine, whatever. Okay? Now look where we are. Look what we have. Now we can do the law of sines. But wait, before we do that, if you wanted to, could you do the law of cosines again, setting up your equation but using angle C or angle B instead? Sure you could. So if you happen to like the law of cosines, you can use it again. Most of us prefer to use the law of sines, but it's up to you. If I do the law of sines, it'll be sine 57.12 over 12 equals maybe sine C over 10. Could I have done sine B over 14? Absolutely, doesn't matter. Gotta find one of them. Alex, you following along here? Sure? What's the next step, Alex? I'm here, I'm at the law of sines. What's my next step? Cross multiply. So what's that gonna look like, Alex? What? 57.12, okay. No, wait, now I know the right, so I'm still cross multiplying. So 10 sine 57 equals what? 12 sine 12 sine C. Now I'm going to divide by 12. So I'm going to type in 10 sine 57.12. Divide that by 12. Now when I type this in, kids, I got a decimal. What do I need to do with my decimal? Second sign it. What's the matter, Dichi?
Where'd you get that 57? Is that from the subtraction?
It's from right here. So I typed in that and then second cosigned it.
Okay, that comes from the part we give them left.
This, yeah. This came up here and all that. I got 44.41. Anybody else match that for angle C? Now, how do I find angle B?
Add them up.
Add them up. So 44.41 plus 57.12. I got 78.47. What do you think? Is that okay? All right, now, if you would, we got a few more minutes. I just want to practice setting up the law of cosines a couple times. So if you have room on your paper, on your notes, that's great. These are not problems from your notes. I want you to set up the law of cosines for me. So let's say we have this situation. Could you set up the law of cosines? We're not going to type it in. We're not going to solve it. I just want you to set it up. What would the law of cosines look like? Y squared equals
11 squared.
times cosine 27? Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's try another one. Try to set these up, you guys, so that you can do this on your own. All right, I want to find angle K. So 15 squared. 10 squared. 12 squared. Minus 2. 10 times 12. Cosine K. Remember, if you're doing all this squared stuff, it's the law of cosines. So it's going to have a cosine in it. All right? Do it for me finding F. What would be the law of cosines for F? 10 squared.
Whoa! Whoa! It's turbo riding.
I know, we are cosine masters. Now, what I'm concerned about is is everybody as up to speed as some of these people in the middle here are? Everybody's good with the law of cosines.
Yeah, we chillin'.
We chillin', awesome. Tomorrow we be doing area, and then we're gonna start reviewing. Ellie, can you?